We are officially 1 month away from the NFL draft. So let's do a Superflex rookie mock.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on X at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on X at Kate Madjuk. And on today's show, we are doing a one-round Superflex rookie mock draft with just 1 month to go from the draft. Kate, I feel it in my bones. We're getting closer and closer. I can't wait. So let's mock.
Let's mock. Now, flip a coin. I get the number 1 overall pick here. And let's be real. This is not a rich quarterback class. This isn't a particularly strong quarterback class. There are no quote unquote generational quarterbacks that we need to be pushing up our draft boards, even in a super flex format, which does prioritize the quarterback position in a big way. So Marcus, with the first overall pick.
Hold on. I gotta get the sound. Give me the sound.
Get the sound ready. Okay. There we go. Ashton Jeanty, running back, Boise State, 21 years old. He's 5'8.5", 211 pounds. But the size, you can throw that away. Maybe, a little undersized from a height perspective. But he led the NCAA with 2,600 rushing yards in 2024. An absolute workhorse with a very well-rounded skill set. Can, be that physical athlete, can be a physical runner, can force missed tackles, elite contact balance, and he can do it all, Marcus. He can do it all.
Yeah, there's just very few players that you're taking over Jeanty in any of your leagues, right? Like, period. I think the only guys that are like up there are the receivers, right? The neighbors, Jefferson, Chase, CeeDee Lambs, and then a couple running backs, maybe Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's it. So this is pretty easy, pretty clear cut. Where things get interesting, Kate, is here at number 2, because right now, if you go to Dynasty League Football, Omarion Hampton is actually number 2 overall in the Superflex rankings, but I'm going in a different direction. So with the number 2 pick, I'm taking Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. And the reasoning is simple. This is a very deep running back class. And if you're drafting inside the top 2 or 3 picks, you're probably going to still be able to get a running back in round 2 that you feel really good about. There's only a finite number of these quarterbacks that are going to be starting, and there's even fewer that have the rushing upside of Cam Ward. He's not a super clean prospect. He's not the most well-rounded quarterback, but he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to get plenty of chances. I'll take him here in Superflex leagues at number 2.
Here's the thing with Cam Ward. We did see year-over-year improvement coming out of Miami. Really kind of just worked his way up. Played 2 seasons at Incarnate Word, D1 FCS school, transferred to Washington State, saw progress there, then went to a bigger ACC program like Miami, and he absolutely thrived. He's got, I think, a lot to like, and especially when you're considering the draft capital there. Makes it a little bit of an easier investment to make. I think Cam Ward.
I don't love the fit with Tennessee, though. That's the only thing. It feels like a very neutral landing spot, and the weapons and the offensive line around him aren't great. But we know things can change really quickly for quarterbacks. So you don't draft a quarterback based on what it looks like in year 1, because my, oh my, how fast things can change at that position.
And also, we know just how important quarterbacks are in a super flex format. If you are picking 2, and like generally a lot of years, I won't say most years, but a lot of years, the number 1 pick in a super flex draft is just always going to be the first quarterback on the board. I think, the Kenny Pickett class might be the one sort of exception to the rule there, but generally speaking, the top quarterback off the board is going to be one of the first picks off the board in a super flex rookie mock. And That's not the case here. I think if you're getting Cam Ward at number 2, you're getting a really nice value because, I mean, led the NCAA in passing touchdowns, led the ACC in pass yards per attempt and efficiency rating, had a really, really strong year. So I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm just willing to wait on the depth of the running backs in this class. Whereas, and you'll see this in a little bit, I'm sure, once we get down here a little bit further, you're not going to love the options in round 2 at quarterback. So if you need one, I think it's okay to take Cam Ward at pick number 2. Kate, you are on the clock here at number 3. Who are you taking?
Your selection of Cam Ward made this pretty easy for me. I'm going with Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC, 22 years old, 6 foot, 220 pounds. And I mean, got the production profile. He's so fun to watch. Definitely can be a bit of a bowling ball of a back-to-back seasons with over 1,400 rushing yards, back-to-back seasons with 16 plus scrimmage touchdowns, 38.5% dominator rating. That is in the 90th percentile for the running back position. I think just like it doesn't have the physical gifts like that a Jeanty will that's going to set him apart in this elite conversation. But from a production standpoint, from a tape standpoint, and from a physical gift standpoint, the physical gifts aren't bad enough that I'm going to knock them. They're still pretty darn good. I'm taking Omarion Hampton here pretty easily.
Yeah, I think if you're in your dynasty drafts in the Superflex, you want one of the top 3 picks because I think the talent really starts to drop off after these guys. And then I think there's a tier coming up and you'll see there's a pretty clean break after the first 3 and then after the next about 4 or 5 players. So if you can get if you can get Hampton at pick 3, I think that's pretty clean. Again, the first 3 picks in some order should be Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Cam Ward. Kate, I'm on the clock here for pick 4, and this is where it gets interesting. Do you take the first receiver off the board, or do you take a running back that's likely to go somewhere between picks 25 and 45? And
or do you go with a quarterback, Marcus? I don't know. No. Shedeur Sanders, is he maybe getting a little bit a little bit of buzz?
Not for me. I'm taking Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State. We'll talk about Quinshon Judkins here in a little bit, who I like almost as much. But I think Henderson's skill set is one that's going to get him drafted earlier. He's just got more speed. He's more explosive. And I think whatever team drafts him, whether that's like the Broncos at 21 or 20, I think is where they pick, or maybe one of these teams in the back half of round 1 or the top of round 2, he's going to be a player that you want to get the football. Now, he's not Jahmyr Gibbs as a player or as a prospect, but I can see a team using him in a similar way, Kate, where, hey, let's give him 10 to 12 carries, but let's make sure we get him 3 to 4 receptions every game in the passing game as well, whether it's on screens, outlets, Texas routes. I just think he's a super dynamic player that you're going to want in your lineup every single week. And I just have more concerns about the receivers and the tight ends than I do Travion Henderson.
I think all of that is fair at this point. I will say, I think the NFL Combine kind of was interesting for Travion Henderson because we talked about, his standing as this really kind of explosive athlete and playmaker. And a lot of his game is rooted in that explosive playmaking ability. Now, I do think it's intriguing coming out of the Combine because Quinshon Judkins tested, I think, as a far more explosive athlete than maybe you would have guessed. So I do think that,
they're both great athletes. I just think Henderson plays a little faster.
He definitely plays a little faster, plays with a little bit more explosive, there's more of an explosive nature to his game, whereas Quinshon Judkins, I think, can be more of a bruiser who happens to be a really good athlete.
All right, let's get to pick number 5. We will do that in just a second, but Kate, I'm curious to see where Quinshon Judkins goes in comparison to Travion Henderson, because you mentioned it. Both of them tested very well at the Combine. Will Quinshon Judkins be the next pick? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. But getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. But that's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Gametime Picks makes it easier to find the best value possible for tickets to your favorite sporting events, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. I was looking at the Gametime app this morning for an event that my wife and I are going to go to this weekend, and I couldn't believe how great some of the deals are on there. So go check them out. Plus, Gametime has the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That is Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are 1 month out from the NFL draft, so we're doing a 1-round Superflex rookie mock. And Kate, you are on the clock here at pick number 5.
This is a really interesting spot. So I'm actually going to pivot a little bit. We've gone running back, we've gone wide receiver, we've gone running back, we've gone quarterback. Now it's time to go wide receiver. I'm drafting Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, 21 years old. He'll be 22 just ahead of the draft. 6'4", 219 pounds. This dude is big and he plays big. But, generally speaking, you're looking at a guy who's got, I think, a pretty safe floor in terms of his size. He's had an excellent collegiate production profile, 91st percentile dominator rating. I love that. 79th percentile breakout age, 19.4. That tells you the age at the start of the season where a player first posted a dominator rating at or above 20%, which is considered, kind of that benchmark for a collegiate breakout. He did it pretty early on. I think he checks a lot of boxes physically. I don't care about his 40-yard dash time. There's been some speculation that maybe the initial reported time, which I think was in the 4.4s.
Yeah.
Probably not quite as fast as that, but that's not the element of his game that makes him a really explosive playmaker. So yeah, I'm going to take the wide receiver. I'm going to take the All-American, who I think from a just overall perspective of like safety when it comes to these wide receiver prospects, I think he's the safest one.
Yeah, and I think I'm not necessarily buying the noise that he's going to fall like outside the top 20 picks. Like I think there's a good chance he goes still in the top 15, and I think there's a good chance that my Dallas Cowboys are ultimately the team that drafts him. Now, I know that's not the best fit for him for a dynasty, but you are going to be pairing him with a good quarterback, so that does help. So I think McMillan should be the number 1 receiver off the board. And this is where things get interesting here at pick number 6, because there's still running backs available, all the quarterbacks available outside of Cam Ward, all of the tight ends are available. But I'm going to go with a little bit of a curveball here, Kate. I'm taking Travis Hunter here at pick number 6. And my reasoning is, again, we are 1 month from the draft. If you told me that Travis Hunter was going to be a full-time receiver in the NFL, I think you could tell me that like he'd be the number 2 pick in this rookie draft, right? And you're starting to see some whispers that like the draft is going to go like this: Cam Ward 1 to the Titans, Abdul Carter 2 to the Browns. At pick 3, it sounds like it's going to be Shedeur Sanders to the Giants, and then at pick 4 is the Patriots. And I just don't see the Patriots or the Jaguars passing on Travis Hunter. And I think in both situations, he's a wide receiver, right? And especially in New England, right? I think in New England, they almost have to make him a receiver. And if Travis Hunter is catching passes from Drake May, I want that. Like, I want that guy on my team. Plus, here's the other thing. It's just really fun to root for Travis Hunter and have him on your dynasty team. So I'm taking him here at 6. I know that might be a little bit of a reach because he might not play receiver. I'm willing to gamble at this spot.
Do you feel like you have a good idea of, so the teams are in play for Travis Hunter? Do you feel like 75% of the teams that could be in play are looking at him as a wide receiver?
I only think 3 teams are seriously considering him because because of where he's going to get drafted. I think it's the Browns, the Patriots, and the Jags, right?
Are
The
they all
Browns have already
considering
said they
him a
view him
receiver?
as a receiver, right? Like
Okay.
that's what they view him as, right? New England has Christian Gonzalez, who they drafted in round 1 2 years ago. They've got corners. They don't have receivers. And Jacksonville's a little bit of a wild card because they do have Brian Thomas, but I would assume that Jacksonville would want him to play offense, and that's why you're drafting him at that spot. I'm willing to take a risk. That's all.
I like the risk. And I do think that when we're looking at players that might see the biggest shift, like right now, ADP has him as the 14th player off the board in Superflex rookie mocks. But I do think Travis Hunter is a guy who is going to gain the most value after the NFL draft, just because there are so many questions about what does his future look like. But I also don't think there are that many people that are going to disagree that having him in a full-time role at either position is probably going to be the thing that helps him reach the highest point of whichever respective skill set. So like, I do think even if he plays, some snaps at corner, right, throughout the course of a game, if he plays primarily quarterback and you put him on the field for 20 offensive plays a game, I still think that there's some value there. So I think it's hard to pass up that. Am I next up on
You
the
are,
clock
yes. Pick
here?
number 7.
This is going to be a tricky position, Marcus. I'm going to go in the way of tried and true talent here. Okay. Tried and true talent. I'm going to roll with Tyler Warren, the first tight end off the board, who is just probably, I know, Ashton Jeanty, very fun player to watch, but I'm going to be honest. My favorite prospect that we've reviewed here over the past month, it's Tyler Warren, and it's not even particularly close because he is truly a do-it-all type of player who loves the game of football, high football IQ, can play literally any position on the football field, can be a blocker. He reminds me of George Kittle in the way that he has that sort of versatility. Like, I think he's going to be a difference maker for somebody in need of a tight end. And I mean, Marcus, if we were doing a tight end premium rookie mock draft, how high does he go?
4.
See, I think you could make the case for him to go 2 behind Ashton Jeanty in that kind of circumstance.
It's possible. I think 4 is the floor, right? And then you're having conversations. Yeah, 4. I mean, you're talking an easy top 4 pick. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I just think the prospect's so safe, and looking at the production profile, looking at the player, it's, I think, really hard to pass that up, especially when we know the tight end position. If you find your dynasty tight end 1, you're good. Like anybody who rolled with Brock Bowers, I know it wasn't an exciting landing spot with the Raiders, but boy, if you leaned into it, congratulations, because you've got a tight end 1 on your dynasty roster for the years to come.
And I'm up at pick number 8 here, and I couldn't be happier because I considered drafting this player at pick number 6, and Quinshon Judkins falls to me here. I love Quinshon Judkins. He's one of my favorite players in this entire draft. There's just nothing he doesn't do well. He's checked every box, whether it's producing at 2 different big-time programs, Ole Miss and Ohio State. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's explosive. He's athletic. He's got really good size. And I think he's secured himself as a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. And whatever team drafts him, I'm going to assume that he's going to be the starter right away. And I just think Quinshon Judkins is somebody that's going to return value very, very quickly in the NFL. And in this mock, you're getting him in the second half of round 1. Absolutely love it. I think this is a steal.
Yeah, I think the tier break between, there's obviously the Ashton Jeanty, but then when you get to RB2, I think Omarion Hampton probably in his own tier. After that, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, even a Caleb Johnson, I think the tier break between these guys is pretty minimal. So once you filter in some of the picks at other positions, you could find some really nice value at the running back position here in the back of round 1.
Yeah, Judkins. And this is, I've got a big big rookie draft coming up here in a few days. We always do it before the draft, and I actually hold picks 7 and 11, and I'm kind of hoping to get some combination of like Quinshon Judkins and then maybe grabbing one of the receivers here. But so yeah, getting Judkins in this draft at 8, I'm absolutely thrilled with it. Where will the second quarterback land, Kate, in our mock draft? We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day, and find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Kate, you are up here at pick number 9 as we finish up our round 1 Superflex rookie mock draft. Who do you got?
This is one of the more interesting points in the draft. I think this is going to be a point where ADP becomes a little bit less reliable because I think the question marks are going to be, what do you need for your dynasty roster? Because I think from a talent perspective, from a player evaluation perspective, the tiers aren't as solidified at this point. So for the sake of this being a super flex rookie mock draft, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's pull the trigger. Let's get Shedeur Sanders, Colorado quarterback, off the board and just see what happens. Now, we had our review of Shedeur Sanders here. I think it was last week. His calling card is accuracy. He's a good enough athlete who can extend plays. He can be a playmaker. And a big part of that's going to be with the pinpoint accuracy. It's not going to be what he accomplishes with his legs. So I think from that perspective, it doesn't feel like as great a pick at this spot as you would think, being the quarterback 2 off the board, just because I think the general upside for fantasy may be limited, even if he has a decent NFL career.
Yeah, and I think this is probably around where he goes, right? And I think if he lands with the Giants, there's a chance that he's not starting right away. Yeah, he's sitting behind the quarterback trio of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito, which would be hilarious. But we know in time, obviously, he's going to be the quarterback there. And if he's playing with Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, like that's not a bad situation to land in, especially with Brian Daboll, who a lot of people really like as a play caller. I do think maybe that situation can get better, maybe quicker than what people are anticipating. So I do think that's a pretty good landing spot. I actually think Cleveland's a good landing spot if that's ultimately what the Browns do at 2, because Kevin Stefanski is so good at working with quarterbacks and developing them. I think Sanders, anytime after the top 7-8 picks, makes a lot of sense.
For sure.
Okay, pick number 10. Again, thrilled with what happened here. I'm taking Caleb Johnson. I know he has some warts. I know he's not my favorite running back in this class. But I mean, I could easily see him being the second running back drafted once we get to April. Teams that run the wide zone scheme are absolutely going to love him. And there are a couple teams drafting at the end of round 1, top of round 2, that I think are just going to look at him and think he's a perfect fit for their offense. Caleb Johnson is somebody who in most years would be a top 2, top 3 pick, right? Because running backs are just so valuable. Getting him here at 10, I think, is a steal.
Absolute steal. Next up, I'm going to go with wide receiver Luther Burden, a Marcus Mosher special. I had to get him before you did, Marcus. I had to. Wide receiver out of Missouri, absolutely dynamic playmaker, so good with the ball in his hands. Just like let him be him. Now, not like an experienced boundary receiver. He might be one of these guys that feels a little bit more landing spot dependent, but I think from a physical trait standpoint, getting him at the back end of round 1 feels, again, like a ton of value. The more we play this mock out, the more I'm thinking I like the options here at the end of round 1.
Yeah, if you're drafting between like 6 and 12, you don't need to move, right? Like unless you absolutely love somebody. I think, actually, to be honest with you, I think from 4 to 12, there's not a big difference in talent. Now, landing spot during the NFL draft will probably remove 1 or 2 of these players and maybe it'll boost up somebody else. But yeah, there's no real reason to move around in this draft unless you're trying to go up and get one of the top 3 players in this class. And Kate, I'll finish this out with pick number 12. Plenty of options here. Jackson Dart, who a lot of people expect to be a first-round quarterback, is available. Emeka Egbuka, who is currently wide receiver 2 on Dynasty League Football, is available. Matthew Golden, who a lot of let's call him big draft media, whether it's like Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, or I think Mel Kiper now, actually have Matthew Golden as the number 1 receiver in this class, and they've been mocking him inside the top 15 pretty frequently. So I think that's an option as well. But I love Colston Loveland.
Yes.
Yep. And I actually think, and we talked about this in his preview a couple weeks ago, that Colston Loveland's profile might project better for fantasy and dynasty success because he's not an inline blocker. He is a slot tight end that gets open with route running and quickness. And I just won't be surprised, Kate, if he lands like with the Chargers in the back half of round 1, who desperately need a tight end, and he reunites with Jim Harbaugh. I think Colston Loveland pretty quickly is a top 8 dynasty tight end. And that's just too good to pass up here at pick number 12.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do think in general, when we're talking about the projected value chart for Colston Loveland, I think his value is going to be fine here in the NFL draft, but I could picture a buy window popping up here relatively early in his rookie season or maybe after his rookie season, because I do think that though I agree the production or the general profile of Colston Loveland might be more conducive for just more fantasy upside, because Tyler Warren is going to do some of the dirty work that isn't going to earn you fantasy points. Colston Loveland going to be doing a lot less of that. But Colston Loveland coming off a season-ending injury that could
it might mess up the training camp stuff a little bit.
Yes,
he's expected to be ready for week 1, for training camp. But we know how it is with some of these shoulder injuries. Like it could linger a little bit.
Yeah. And also just missed reps, this is a very important acclimation period for some of these rookies. So like, could I picture Colston Loveland getting off to a slower start in his NFL career and maybe losing some value and opening up a buy low window? Yes. So if I do miss out on Colston Loveland in my rookie drafts, I'm not going to panic fully because call it my Miss Cleo senses. That's what I'm picturing for him moving forward.
I guess the thing for me, Kate, is I keep coming back to like, how many tight ends right now in dynasty leagues would I take over Colston Loveland? And obviously it's Bowers, McBride, Laporta, Hawkinson. Those are your top 4. And then it's really hard. I think then it's like, I would rather have Colston Loveland than like Mark Andrews, George Kittle, David Njoku, Dalton Kincaid. So we're talking about him being a top 5 or 6 dynasty tight end already out of the gate. And maybe that's a little aggressive. But again, if you can get a top 6, top 7 player at a position at the bottom part of round 1, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I think this has been an eye-opening exercise because, again, the pick difference between like 4 and 12, not so significant. And there are some interesting talent gaps that I think are going to make, the decision-making process not necessarily a clear-cut one. Like, I could picture this being a year where we don't have great consensus ADP at any point in the pre or post draft process.
So just to recap our Superflex rookie mock draft, we had Ashton Jeanty 1, Cam Ward 2, Omarion Hampton 3, Travion Henderson 4, Tetero McMillan 5, wide receiver from Arizona. Travis Hunter at 6. That might be a reach. I understand. I'm willing to take the risk there. Tyler Warren 7, Quinshon Judkins 8, Shedeur Sanders at 9, Caleb Johnson at 10, Luther Burden, my guy, at 11, and then Colston Loveland at 12. I think there's a couple other names that could easily have snuck their way into the first round, whether that would be maybe a running back like Cam Scadaboo, if you think he's going to be a top 50 pick. Obviously, Matthew Golden, who might be their first receiver drafted. Maybe you want to get in on like Emeka Egbuka or Jaden Higgins, but I like what we did here.
I very much like what we did here. This is a good mock, Marcus, and I'm really excited to do the first iteration post draft to see just how much things shake up.
Yeah, we'll make sure we keep track of this one because there certainly will be changes. You don't have to worry about that. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, download the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosier, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.